Good evening and welcome to the February 9th board meeting. We will start our meeting with roll call.
Director Cooney,
Present.
Dalby,
Present.
DeBeat,
Present.
Koff,
Present.
Phillips.
Present.
Directors Schneider and Schur are absent, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. If you'll rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We will welcome our visitors and our media representatives, including the Boy Scouts that are earning merit badges today from Troop 127, so welcome. We have a public hearing for the Muscatine Community School District 2026 roof project. We will need a roll call or a motion to open that public hearing and then a roll call vote.
I have a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
We'll need a roll call. A roll call?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was jumping ahead of things. Cooney,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
DeBeat,
Aye.
Koff,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
and Schneider. I'm sorry, Snyder's not here. Jeez. We're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Were there any comments received?
No.
All right, we will close the public hearing with a motion.
I move we close the public hearing for the roof project.
I'll second the motion.
And we'll need a roll call to close.
So much today. Cooney,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
DeBeat,
Aye.
Koff,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye. Our student representatives will give us an update.
Good evening. We're so excited to be here for the month of January. It is the 101st day of school today. The Key Club is starting Crush for a Crush at the high school this week, and they are being sold at lunch. And on top of that, the Muscatine High School Choir Department is doing their annual Singing Valentine fundraiser for students. So their group of choir students will go and sing for students who buy one for their friend. Senior Survivor has started, and there will be challenges that the community can come watch Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m., and more information is to come on that. The Chinese Lunar New Year celebration will be this Saturday on the 14th, and River City Rhythm show choir from MHS placed the first in the 4A division in the morning and the fourth in their overall competition in Mount Pleasant this Saturday, and they will be going to Kansas City this Saturday.
For athletics, Zena Solfis will compete at state bowling this Thursday in Waterloo and also received first team all-district and second team all-state. Congrats, Zena. Jaslyn Enriquez and Lexi Eaton both attended girls state wrestling last week. Jaslyn Enriquez placed 7th at the girls state wrestling tournament. 4 Muskie swimmers qualified for the state swim meet on Saturday. Jay Ballarcher, oh my gosh, I'm gonna really mess up his last name, so bear with me. Bala Chalander, sorry. And Santi Diaz will swim the 100 butterfly. Jay, Santi, Will Levins, and Maddox Warren will swim the 200 medley relay as well. Girls soccer signups have been posted for MHS. The annual Boosters Cake Auction is this Friday at 6 p.m. Their goal this year is to raise $50,000. Last year they raised $48,000, so they're trying to up that by just 2 more. There is a boys and girls basketball game tomorrow at Clinton starting at 4:30 p.m., as well as a boys district wrestling meet this Saturday. Additionally, course selection has started at MHS, so 8th graders at the middle school and then freshmen, sophomores, and juniors have been picking their classes for next year. There's also the 8th grade parent night this Thursday on February 12th, so 8th graders can come in and get a presentation and a tour of the high school. The Community Foundation Scholarship has opened MHS seniors and is due March 9th, and the Excellence in Education Scholarship has opened as well. Thank you.
Any questions for them? All right, thank you. We'll move into the citizen speak portion of the agenda. If anyone would like to address the board, you'll move to the podium and state your name. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and per Iowa code, we may not respond. Board targets and goals report. Our board goals are that students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably, and students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. We have a presentation on our enrollment study under Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively.
That's me. All right, you should have a packet. Each of you have a packet. This is a kind of a subset of the entire information and analysis. It's over 50 pages long. There's a ton of details in here. These are the ones that I felt were really more relevant to our conversation. When we're finished tonight and in the minutes, we'll put the full report in there so everyone will have access to that. As you know, as we've been talking about enrollment and how that pertains to budget, I wanted to make sure I got this information to you. Our next work session will be focused pretty much all on budget. So this kind of helps just frame what we're looking at moving forward. As you know, we've been in declining enrollment for a number of years, and really one of the big issues with that is our declining birth rate. And so one of the challenges is, we have these small kindergarten classes that are coming in and these large graduating classes that are going out. So we're automatically kind of offset there. The last time we had this study done 3 years ago, for this fall, that birth rate dropped significantly, and we really kind of wanted to know what happened after that. And so we'll kind of walk through there, and then I'll hit some of the other highlights and then answer any questions that you have. So that first page that you have in your packet there is birth rate visuals. So should look like this. And so where that line is, you can see kind of where that 523 is to 431. That's that big drop we were talking about. What we didn't know is what's happening after that. Well, what you can see is it bounces back up and down, so there is some variation there. It never recovers back to over 500, okay? So we do see a little bit of recovery from that, but it never fully goes back to where it was. Again, we know this as you'll see other population shifts. That's happening across the state, but certainly has been happening here for a number of years. So if you go to the next page, which talks about class size comparisons, what you'll see is that first bar graph shows kindergarten in the kind of the red bar, and then the blue bar is 12th grade. Well, you can see after the kind of the where we're at currently, as we get out to those years in 28, 29, and close to 30 is where we start to even out. And that's something we've talked about for a while. We kind of see that flatlining here, and their part of their study shows that yes, we should kind of flatten out so that our incoming kindergarten, outgoing 12th grade is much closer. You can see that as well in that chart below that line graph. And again, that kind of big black bar is where we're at right now. And you can see those lines kind of coming together, right? So class size starts to equal out. So we're really looking at somewhere between 250 to 300 students per class. Again, that's going to fluctuate a little bit up and down each year, but that's where we really start to just kind of balance out. Okay? So again, targeting a kindergarten class size around 275 really helps us stabilize. The next page that we're going to talk about is just the 3-year student migration trend, and they've broken this out by elementary, junior high, and high school. It shows students coming in and students coming out and what that net change is. And when you compare that elementary, junior high, and high school, you can see we have the most kind of net migration out at the elementary level. Obviously, fewer students at the junior high, so it tightens up a little bit there, and then a little bit more at the high school. I think more importantly is when you see that below, when it's all pulled together, over the last 3 years, we've gone from a net loss of 82 to 56 to 32. So we're starting to, again, tighten that in and out, and hopefully we'll see some more stabilization there. On the next page, it talks about out-of-district student analysis. So I want to make sure I'm clear on this because this threw me at first. These are the students that are open enrolled into our district. So even though it says out of district, it's the students who are out of the district coming in. So you can see where we get most of our students from Louisa, Muscatine, and then Wilton, Davenport, Columbus, and West Liberty. You can see those, especially Louisa, Muscatine, that's gone down some over the last 5 years. And so it kind of puts that into a bar graph below, where you can see it has gone down to about 84 students coming in. That also balances with, when you see that tightening of the total in and out from the previous slide, that's because our open enrolled out has also gone down, right? So it's still higher than what's coming in, but it's starting to tighten up. Okay. The next page, this is a student heat density map. We've shared this the last time. I think it's just a great representation. It's where our students live within the district, and you can see in that core area down around Jefferson is where the vast majority of our students live. And obviously there's some hotter spots throughout there, but you kind of get a good idea of where that is. That was part of the reason we did an addition down at Jefferson. And again, we've transitioned the dual language program down there, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So then it's just, again, some takeaways that we're still decreasing students. There's some recommendations in cohort retention, but it really, again, comes down to that kindergarten coming in, graduating class going out, and stabilizing that over time. So the next slide is about population, development, and enrollment. So there's a lot of information on this chart. There's one clear black line across there at the 0 level. So it's showing multiple things. The thing on the very top, the blue line, is building activity over the last 10 years. So you can see it's been above 0, but it hasn't been very far above 0. And it does start to spike up a little bit since this past year. We went from 9 in 24-25 new certificates of occupancy. So that's single-family homes, multifamily homes. But we went this past year up to 31. So there has been a little more increase in development. And working with the city, and you've seen that as part of Collaborate Muscatine. We see that, and we'll show that here in a little bit. Additional developments kind of on the way. I think the other interesting piece in this graph is the green line that stays just slightly above 0 for up through 2021, and then it drops, and it shows about an additional 150 people, and that's the population. So that's Muscatine as a whole, right? And I think, one of the things I heard for a long time is the population of Muscatine is like, it's gonna stay at this amount and it never gets any lower. It doesn't grow, but doesn't go down. Well, it is starting to go down as well, right? So when you're seeing those kinds of drops also, that magnifies kind of the loss and what we're seeing with students as well. And then the enrollment change, again, is we've been on the negative side. You can see some years it's greater than others. And then you can see the last 3, we start to flatten, and we're moving in the direction of 0, and that's what we'll hope to see as we move through these next several years. The next slide talks about K-12 yield rates. This is important as we're talking about new developments. So the yield rates, what it's showing over time on this is the yellow or orange color is single-family units, and the green is multifamily units. And that's on average, out of 100 units, how many new students would we capture? And what you see is in 2016, 2017, we would capture about 43 students out of 100 single-family homes. Now it's 34. So the amount of students we're capturing in new developments, both from single-family and from multifamily, has gone down. That's going to come into play later when we're talking about new developments. So we start to project out how many students, if we get some new development, how many students might we see out of that. So that's just an important indicator when you hear people talking about, well, they're going to build, you know, H&I has the potential to build with that property they donated to the city, 150, I think, single-family homes could go in there. So with that 150 single-family homes at a capture rate of 0.34, that'd be about 50 students. Okay? So we could expect 50 students out of all of those homes, more or less. Okay? Moving on, this is just an inventory analysis of the homes. We know that there hasn't been a lot of development. The majority were kind of pre-1940 and earlier. So you've seen that kind of decline over time. We're hoping to see a little more growth out of that. So there's some information there. And then the next is just new developments that are potentially happening. This is where I mentioned that H&I development. It's in yellow, and that means it's going to happen over the next kind of 5-year range. So again, whether, you know, over those 5 years, we could potentially see 150 new homes. So there's other areas, the Carver Corner, the lumber lofts, and how many potential units are there. Some of those are multifamily units. So again, we'd see that kind of slightly lower capture rate. So then they use that to calculate as they start looking out over these next 5 years. That's how they put together some of those numbers of what we might experience based on birth rate and development in our housing. So the conclusions of kind of part 2 talks through what, you know, kind of what we just shared in terms of the boundaries and capture rate and what's happening with growth kind of across the city area here. Then we get into kind of really the enrollment, both the past enrollment and projected enrollment. You can see going back to 2013, 2014, we've had this just kind of steady decline, which follows right along with the declining birth rate. And you can kind of see with that black line where we are currently. And then again, what they're showing is as we get out over the next 3, 4, 5 years, that starts to flatten out. So again, actual birth rates could change. That could fluctuate. Some of these, we could have increased development that could push us in a different direction. So again, knowing that we're probably flattening out, but we're still, you know, 3, 4, 5 years from that likely happening. And part of that is when you think about it, what we're seeing right now in the junior high are 2 of our lower grades, right? When 4 grades like that get to the high school, that's when it's going to be at its lowest level. That's where we really see that kind of balance happening. The next one I wanted to share with you is just projections by building. Really the main thing here is kind of on the right side of this chart, as you look at each of the buildings, it talks about the numbers of students per building who reside there versus attend there. So attend means, you know, we have open kind of internal transfers. We have some programs where kids attend. So if you look at Jefferson Elementary, which is kind of in the middle, it's showing a lot of green. And that green means that it's under 70% of its operational capacity, meaning we're not using it enough. Well, what they didn't note in here initially, but you see there's a note in there, that we're adding an additional dual language classroom every year. So that number is going to be above what it's showing here, and it will continue to add. So it will be above that operational capacity, which is what we've designed it to do, right? The other one where you see some green is Mulberry. A couple of years you do, a couple of years you don't. What I will say about Mulberry is it's typically our highest in terms of a choice for open enrollment or internal transfer. So we typically see higher than expected enrollment there. We'll see closer to that 280, between 280 and 300 traditionally. So I'm not necessarily concerned about that. And then the other one where you see a lot of green is the high school. What we know is that population continues to get lower at the high school. It was built to serve a much larger number of students. So that is kind of to be expected as well. And then it shows you then, instead of by building, it shows you by level. The elementary total, the junior high total, and the high school. Obviously, the high school doesn't change from above. But when you look at all of our capacity and our enrollments, we are kind of functioning at that operational capacity. We're not over, but we're not under. And then the last page I just wanted to share with you is just how those projections look by grade over time. And the one I'll point out probably more specifically is the second column is kindergarten. You can see, excuse me, how kindergarten has changed from 2011, 2012, down to where we're at now. At one point, we were over 400, and this year it's 256. Again, that relates to that declining birth rate. Then you can see what it's projecting, what they're projecting for kindergarten enrollment moving forward. They're saying we're getting closer to 300 again. So what they think is going to happen is we're going to start to flatten out. We should see some of the development start to come into play. So they think we'll get back closer to 300, but again, until students enroll and register, we'll have to keep an eye on it. But that's their prediction over time. You can also see on the far right how that changes by grade level as well. So when we get to that far column, the K-12 change over those last, from 26-27 to 2030, 2031, you can see those numbers. We go from kind of a decline of about 101 students to 74 to 38 to 17 to 21, and then you see a plus 13. So they are expecting us to start seeing some increase there. And then again, that's something that, you know, every couple of years we're going to need to come back, and obviously we're monitoring enrollment every year, but kind of take a look at birth rates and where we're at and how we're trending on that. Ton of information. There's a lot more in the full packet, which we will attach in the minutes moving forward so everyone can see that. But what questions can I answer for you right now?
Just on that last one, are these projections, like year to date, are these actuals or are these based on like prior projections?
For 25-26? For 25-26, they are actuals.
Those are actuals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or very close to, whenever they pulled the data, that's where it was at the time. It might have fluctuated since then.
I just find it interesting if you follow one class through the grades, how it's fluctuated.
Yep.
So,
And sometimes it fluctuates down, other times it fluctuates up.
yeah.
We also know that between 8th and 9th grade, we jump, and that's because that's where St. Mary Matthias students come into the high school, right? One of the things they'll talk about, I probably should have mentioned, in the larger study is our kindergarten capture rate, and that we're down closer to 50% of the available babies coming into actual being in kindergarten. But in really looking at that, at the math behind that, our enrollment has continued to decline. Our birth rate is declining, so our number of kids eligible for kindergarten is getting smaller. What's staying constant is St. Mary Matthias has about 2 sections of kindergarten every single year. That number is static, right? And so if the overall number is going down and that number stays static, we're going to see that continue to decline. Now, if we can start getting some additional students, we'd hope to see more of that capture rate go back up. Because again, that St. Mary Matthias piece is going to be fairly static over time.
Thank you for all the information. It is quite a bit of information, which will mean that I'll probably have to take some really more time to, go fully through here. But mine is more of an observation than anything, because my background is housing, and knowing what the housing rental market and stuff has been over the years, and as in, yes, on that page where it shows the residential inventory analysis, we have quite a bit of property that is definitely an older category, and a lot of those older category ones become rental properties. And so I want to say kudos to the city, county, and school working forward to develop these many developments that we have, going on with a partnership with a lot of the our corporations and stuff too, because in the end, it helps us all if we end up working together, so that if we have the proper housing, it will help make sure that we have that stability for everyone. So thank you for that.
Kind of along those notes, I know that you mentioned, that a lot of this work has been collaborative through Collaborate Muscatine. What is the plan to push this out to other stakeholders in the community?
Yeah, so we'll get this out here as a part of this document. I'll share it with our Collaborate group, and so we'll certainly, and then as I've presented, I usually use pieces of this information when I'm sharing with the community groups as well.
Clint, I just noticed, and it's hard for me to say much about any data before I really spend maybe a month looking at it and talk about it. But if I look at the last page, the kindergarten, the big drop from 2011-12 to 2025-26, and I don't know if we have in the raw data anything that indicates that we have more and more what we call brain drain, where younger generations are not staying in Muscatine, hence we have less and less in newborn babies because they are moving somewhere else, because this is an indication that's a big drop within like 10, 15 years to see almost half of the number that most probably, and I don't know if the original data has this data or not, but most probably we're losing the younger generations to, it could be neighboring communities, or perhaps moving out of the state, and we don't have that younger generations that produce babies again in Muscatine. Hence, we are seeing the number is going down. But it would be nice to see if in the original data there is an indication to that particular factor.
I would point back to that one graph that shows kind of city population, and was very stable till about 2021. So when COVID hit, it dropped, and then it's kind of consistently continued to drop since that time.
So most probably the biggest drop in that drop are among the younger generation. Most probably that's why we're seeing less born babies. So, yeah, okay.
Well, I just want to also say that when I talk about the fact that the working together is, the school system is just a part of the equation, and we need to do what we can to keep active, step up, and be a part of that, because when we try to, as a city and for the working areas, they need to be able to show that our schools are something that somebody wants to be able to come in and be a part of it. So I want to say that I am very proud of what we are working at to be able to make sure that we can do our best to determine some ways to be able to show folks on that. And I don't know if there's a little bit more that you can share, Clint, as in how that is working with the collaboration?
With Collaborate Muscatine?
Yeah.
Well, again, you have multiple people at the table. You have, city representatives, you have people from industry, from nonprofits, and so really identifying the two areas we want to focus on as a community and through Collaborate is around housing and around education, because we know they're linked, and we know that, we do have a housing issue, right? And when families are coming into the community, if they're looking for a certain level of home, here there might be one, they can go to Iowa City or they can go to the Quad Cities, and there might be 40, right? So that has an impact on what's drawing people. So, I think the good news is you can see there's already a number of developments moving forward. I think one that that kind of popped up recently is that Clairbeck subdivision that's kind of across from the high school. 2 years ago, that wasn't there at all, right? And that's 26 homes. Now, how many kids will we get out of that? It's a small number, but it helps, right? Every little bit helps. And so if we, and they are really prioritizing that. The other piece that I think is important that our city is doing, that our nonprofits are supporting, there's that, I think they call it the Mulberry neighborhood, but it's really around Jefferson, and that, providing some dollars to help, make the outsides of homes look nicer. The city has also had an increase in the number of homes they've torn down because they're inhospitable, right? And so instead of just letting that sit there and as an eyesore, they've been more proactive in getting some of those things torn down. That turns into a lot. Now they can build on that and again, help revitalize that area, which again, brings more opportunity to bring people in and give them something to live in and in a quality neighborhood.
Thank you.
Again, I know there's a ton of information in here. I wanted to make sure, since we had just gotten it, had an opportunity to at least present it to you initially. As we get into more of those budget conversations and we're looking at projections, I think these align with a lot of the numbers that we've been talking about. And certainly Tom, as he's done some of his own calculations, align really well with that, very, very similar.
All right. Anything else? Okay. We will move to the superintendent update. Back to you.
I don't have a ton tonight. Just was going to quickly, again, I've been trying to weekly send out some legislative updates just to make sure that that you and all of our staff just know what's happening, what's being talked about. Certainly that continues to change. We're waiting on SSA. We may be waiting for a while as some of the tax reform gets settled out. Obviously, we know what the governor's plan is, what the House plan is, and what the Senate plan is. How that all comes to a final decision, we'll kind of watch, but making sure that we're providing you with information, as we talk about one of the governor's proposal kind of scoops those save dollars up to, I believe, 30%. The impact that has, we've borrowed against those save dollars because it doesn't impact your property taxes. It's guaranteed revenue from the state. It's been very consistent, and so we borrowed out to 2030, which isn't very long. But even that, with that, if that 30% happened, basically anything over 23%, if they were taking funding away from us, we would be in default on those bonds, which means we're either having to go out and ask the community to do general obligation bonds, or we're taking it out of other funds, or we're taking it out of the general fund. None of those are good options. So we're hoping that, some of those conversations around save dollars don't happen. And it's not just us. I did share today, when you look at districts across the state, and there's a lot in our area that would be immediately impacted by that as well. So again, all these have implications, so it's just important to know we're coming, closer to the funnel where if the bill doesn't get through that, it's not supposed to move forward. But also I know how things work, and at the end, sometimes in bills, in funding bills at the end, it gets lumped in there, and so we will continue to do our best to keep you up to date on that kind of constantly changing landscape in Des Moines. So with that, questions?
Well, if I may say just something very quick, we have the legislative forum Saturday. I mean, Karen, Carrie, myself, we stood up and asked questions, in particular about school funding and so on. Unfortunately, our local representative and senator, they weren't there at that. But I have a feeling, at least, I might be wrong, that most probably it will take another 2 months before we know that. I mean, the Senate introduced the 1.75. We know the governor is saying 2%, but I think on the House side, it's going to take a lot, most probably, before they agree on that. So,
well, again, I think the other important piece is, for us, if we get to 3%, it moves us off budget guarantee, which impacts taxpayers, right? So there's conversations about. I think the governor's proposal is at 2%, but then $42 million towards offsetting budget guarantee across the state, which is, again, that lowers it for property taxpayers, but it's one-time funding. So we're kind of right back to that the next year. Because there are fewer students in the state this year than last year, the cost of 2.5%, and 3% is less than it would have been. And I believe last year we spent additional $134 million, right? We could get to a 3% for less money than that, right? Now, whether we will, to be seen. But, and again, they're basing, some of that on increasing revenue over the next year. I think the revenue estimate was 4.2% increase. So there's just a lot of pieces that are tied up in that, and we'll kind of have to see how that all comes out.
As you were talking about that with the budget guarantee, one of the questions that I asked on with that is because I have information that shows that not only is it like our size or the smaller of schools that are having this problem about budget guarantee, but we're talking some schools up in Des Moines even that are going to be affected by it if they do not get the 3% as well. So this is a state issue as we look at it all the way.
All right. We'll move into our consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and be considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are approve the minutes of January 12th regular session and January 26th work session, approve bills and claims, approve employment recommendations, approve contracts for special education services, approve the contract of special education instruction services with West Liberty Community School District, and approve the interfund transfer between the general fund and the school nutrition fund. Finally, approve policies with no minimal or required by law changes. How does the board wish to proceed?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our next item is to approve the agreement with Pro Playgrounds in the amount of $240,999 for the replacement of the playground equipment and surface at Franklin Elementary.
I move to approve the agreement with Pro Playground in the amount of $240,999.
I second.
Are there any questions, comments?
Is this something that we had started this process last year?
Well, we've been doing several. So Mulberry, we had an upgrade to their playground. We did Grant as well. Jefferson, through the construction, their playground kind of got tore up, so we had to replace that. So there has been kind of an upgrade process. I will say for Mulberry and for Grant, some of that is getting the accessible surface there. And that is a big portion of that of that cost.
Sure, but I guess I thought Franklin, we had already talked about that from before. But
We have not done that one yet.
Okay.
It's still mulch.
And it's in,
We just knew that it needed done.
Yeah,
it definitely needs to be done.
Okay,
This should be our last one
yeah.
that has a soft surface.
Chris, I see that the first play structure, the Pine Valley, has like a little check mark that it meets ADA guidelines. Do you know what those are for playgrounds? Or like, because I just noticed that one had it and one didn't, and I'm sure that there's, there are things that you can't make fully accessible. I didn't know if you
Don't
had
know if I
any
know the
insights
answer
on
to
that.
that. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
I think that's always an interesting question too, because they will try to say that they can make certain mulch ADA accessible, and I can tell you, it just doesn't happen. There's no way to do it. Not truly accessible. So, again, I think there's a lot wrapped up in that, what is actually ADA compliant. And it isn't always compliant, even if it says it is. That flat surface, though, does allow kids to participate who are in wheelchairs out there and more effectively.
How many buildings do we have that have the wheelchair accessible swing? Is it just McKinley?
Mulberry has one. Grant has one. I'm not sure about, McKinley has one. Not sure about Madison. I don't think Jefferson does. And I believe we included one in this new one at Franklin. But those are, usually the principal will come to me like, hey, can we switch out this swing if it's needed, based on the students that are there. So I haven't gotten any requests. But as far as Franklin goes too, Corey, as we did with Mulberry and Grant, went to his staff, went to the students, got their input, went through, we got some renderings from a couple different vendors, took it back to them, chose this one with input from his students and staff. So I think they're pretty happy with what they chose.
I have a question on it, because it says that the date of this was 12/22/2025, and there is a discount of almost $5,000, but it says discount valid for 30 days. So do we still get
Yeah, we're still
that
getting the
discount?
Yeah. We just had to get the process going, I think, before the end of the year, and they gave us a little bit of a discount for that.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next is to approve the purchase of a dishwasher for Susan Clark Junior High Food and Nutrition Department in the amount of $41,800 from Wilson Restaurant Supply. We will need a motion.
I move to approve purchasing the dishwasher.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And my only comment is that's a lot better dishwasher than my dishwasher at that price.
Yeah, they're expensive. Is the current one broken, or? Yeah, it's been broke all year. It broke at the end of last year, so those, they've been struggling through hand washing dishes over there. So it's much needed.
What's the turnaround time on it?
Not too long. This one's it's kind of in stock, but we got to kind of retrofit some things into a really small area. So that's the bigger challenge. We got to move some electrical and some plumbing around to get it in to where it's at. It's in a weird spot in that kitchen. That kitchen's, not very big as is. So, but we'll hopefully in the next month we'll have it up and running.
Oh, nice. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We will move to Tom with our January financials.
Okay, I'm not going to take up too much time since we'll be talking about budget stuff in a couple weeks. But, so the February 23rd is our budget work session, and then we'll have to set some dates for the public hearing number 1 and public hearing number 2. So we'll have that in a couple weeks. And then just want to point out about January and state aid. I put a note there in the board packet. Remember, we talk about cash and spending authority in the general fund, and certain things take up cash, but and we don't, or we get the spending authority, but we don't have the cash. And so every district in Iowa has to proportionately pay for students that do not have a resident district that are being served in juvenile homes. So it's something that we pay for every year, and it's just a reduction in our cash, but not our spending authority. So another reason that we have to look at cash reserve every year. And for Muscatine, that was $98,413 this year. So just wanted to point that out because that happens starting in January through June, then reduction from the state of Iowa. So other than that, I have no other comments about January financials unless you had any questions. So.
This is just more of an observation, as in, to know also on Saturday, what we did is we asked about with the, trying to think here, okay, oh, okay, on the tax information that we usually do with March and April dates, they indicated anyway that they were planning on trying to make it an easier document for it to be given to folks to be able to understand what those components are for between the school, city, and county.
And that won't be for the next year, though. But so for this year, it'll still be the same as it has been.
It is, okay.
But for the fiscal year 28 is what they're trying to make changes for.
Gotcha.
So, yep. Okay. Thank you.
I have no written announcements tonight, if anyone has any announcements. All right, that will conclude our agenda. We will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you.